Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. We are now live for a Q&A session with CEO of Chris Video, Michael Mogill. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So in the next 30 minutes, we're going to go through and answer a few questions that all law firms have regarding how to grow their practice using intent-based marketing and video marketing. Michael, who's our guest today, is the CEO, as I said, of Chris Video Group. It's the nation's fastest growing legal video marketing company. He's also the author of The Game Changing Attorney. It's available on Amazon right now. Chris is one of the Forbes 500, top 500 fastest growing companies in the US. And Michael's been featured on many different publication sites such as Ford, Inc., AVVO, ABA Journal, The Trial Lawyer, and the Wall Street Journal. Hopefully I didn't miss anything.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. All that stuff is a mouthful. So thank you.
No problem. And I'm Michael Saad. I'm the CEO and founder of Digital 1010 and the law firm Accelerator. I've been fortunate enough to work with some pretty amazing clients in the past: Coca-Cola, Reynolds America, Snyder's Lance. Digital 1010 is a 2-time Addy Award-winning agency, and recently we were awarded of City's top advertising and content marketing agency for Savannah. So now that we've kind of got the introductions out of the way, let's get into the meat, since I know that we only have 30 minutes for this Q&A. Really what we want to talk about is law firm marketing and how it's evolved over the last 10 years. You know, it's really hard for firms to create a sustainable practice using old marketing tactics. Let's be honest, things are evolving, and over the last 10 years for lawyers specifically, they've evolved quite a bit. So we're here to answer the top questions that attorneys have when it comes to how they can grow their bottom line without wasting time, effort, or money. So really when we start to think about, how do we affect our bottom line without, spreading ourselves too thin? And when most clients come to us, they say, we want to grow our business. What do we need to do? And we try to tell them, start with intent. Start with the user's intent, your customer's intent. But what is that actually? So we have two images here. The first is called a cyclonic buyer's journey, and the second is just a traditional sales funnel. And you'll notice that there are different segments within each of these different journeys, right, that a customer would potentially take. And through each of these segments, there are different touch points that you could utilize so that they have a better understanding for what your firm can offer, right? So in an awareness standpoint, you could use things like social media. In a consideration or evaluation phase, using things like your blog posts or lead magnets from an email series is definitely a good place to be. And then for intent, using search type platforms is really what you want to do. Now, there is intent on all of these different types of marketing platforms that you can use, but really when it comes to what people do when they search for specific lawyers and their services, they generally go to some kind of paid platform like Google more than they would go to something else like a social media platform. Now, there is intent in social media, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But just to kind of give you the upfront as to why we try to tell people to focus on, this section of their advertising, especially when they're smaller firms and don't necessarily have the funds for a full omnipresent campaign. Mike, anything you want to include into that?
Well, I would agree. I mean, I would say that it's so intent-based marketing. I know that this is something that we'll talk about a good bit today, but I really, really, really think that this is, this is one of those buzzwords that's now being thrown around. It's similar to like multi-channel marketing, but it's even account-based marketing, like different words meaning different things. But in this sense, there's such a value that if you can leverage this through the various audiences and interests and so on, and being able to drive conversions, that I would wholeheartedly agree. I mean, so much of the marketing that we do as a company is very much based on intent-based marketing. So I'm very excited to discuss this topic.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's kind of the reason that we wanted to reach out to you guys to get you on today's Q&A session, because when a lot of people, they come to us as a firm and they say, we have videos, how do we use them? We don't actually produce video, but we like to show them that the videos you do produce have great, great engagement rates. They have really a great storyline that can produce leaps and bounds of intent. It's just a matter of how you actually use them, which is what we'll discuss today. So question 2, what are the different types of video that speak directly to users' intent, and at what stages do we really look at? Michael?
Yep. Oh, I think I just got cut off for a second. So there's, when we talk about particularly with legal videos, there's different types of content that we really look at as in terms of like different pieces at different stages in the buyer's journey. So like the easiest one when we're talking is at the really the awareness stage, where let's say you've got an educational video or an FAQ that's focused around a particular topic or practice area. Let's say it's a video about an educational video tied around motorcycle accident cases. I mean, that's a video where if you're seeing that there's very strong viewership of that, based on the audience that you're running it to, that there's likely a much higher level of intent based on motorcycle accident cases than nursing home abuse or whatever the practice area might be. The other types of content pieces that we see are generally the amount of pieces they're consuming, so things like client testimonials, or the overall firm brand video, which is really the story. But we find that generally if there has to be some sort of hook, so meaning that what would be a reason why they would watch a particular content piece over another, and if let's say they are looking for an attorney, assuming that intent is there, and they're trying to make that decision in terms of who they hire, and they're deciding between, let's say, 1,000 firms that they could hire within a given market. What are the types of pieces that will really kind of hook them from an intent-based standpoint? And I think it's really largely the educational ones. I think it really starts with that, whether it's educational or practice area, specifically that is something that differentiates one content piece from another. The main types of videos where we really look at it as an overall is the main firm video, which is kind of like the why and the story, why the firm exists. Practice area specific videos, which ultimately focus on individualized practice areas, client testimonial pieces, which are based around social proof, educational videos like FAQs that are providing thought leadership and credibility, or attorney profiles if we're highlighting individualized attorneys within the firm. So those are the main types of content pieces that I think probably encapsulates 90+% of the types of videos that a law firm would produce.
Absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right, and each of those videos can be used at different stages within that buyer's journey, what we looked at a little bit earlier. And to your point, there's different ways as firms start to create those videos, to display those videos to users in different platforms. So, if they see an awareness video about, to your point, a motorcycle accident, and you're in that video, you're able to state the problem and kind of agitate that problem a little bit. Through the different platforms, there are ways to then show them secondary, tertiary videos to keep that story going and really drive the point home. And that kind of rolls us into our next question. How we can recreate intent after users have left the website or landing page. So they've seen the video, they've gone to your website, and they've kind of left to go back to whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's on social media, they go to search for stuff on YouTube. Is there ways to recreate that intent if the user hasn't really taken any kind of engagement or sent you any kind of lead or conversion based on what you're looking to attain?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think it's giving them more of like the content that's relevant to them. So let's say that they've landed upon a particular landing page, and again, I'll just stick with like the motorcycle accident example. So they've landed on that page. There's a practice area video. It's focusing around motorcycle accident cases. But then when they go somewhere else, let's say whether it's on Facebook or social media or what have you, now they're seeing more content based upon that, whether it's educational videos or client testimonials where the firm has worked with those who have been in motorcycle accident cases, where it kind of stays within the same topic and framework, and that they continue to see that content so that it can ultimately drive them back to the page to ultimately convert.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the biggest things that most firms miss out on is that behavioral retargeting. A lot of firms, when they come to us, they're very much in that one-track mind. I just need to use X platform. They've been told by other agencies or whatever that if they do X, that they're going to see their leads jump. But they fail to realize that because you've already had that visitor come to your site, whether it's through social media originally or a PPC campaign, or maybe they clicked on your SEO, You know, you're linking the top 3 positions of the organic results, and they came to your page for a specific reason. And to Michael's point, they left and went back to a social media page. Well, that's your opportunity to basically reserve them different formats of content to basically drive the information about why your practice is the right fit for them. They've already given you some of that information, whether it's visiting specific pages, so that you can display content relating to those pages, not just more information about you know, general practice info that you would potentially have.
Right.
Cool. So what are the top mistakes that attorneys have when they try to incorporate video into their marketing mix?
Yeah, well, so there's a good bit. I mean, I think the first one that we see most commonly is when you're creating content in advance of the campaign itself. So like, meaning that before defining goals with clarity in terms of like what, you know, who is the ideal client, what is the kind of the goal from the campaign, is this, where does this video sit in the funnel, is it more based upon awareness or consideration, and like where, you know, essentially how would the video be used and leveraged, and then deciding which videos would be a best fit tied to the goals. So I really think that marketing decision really needs to start first and then outline the strategy in the campaign before content is being produced and filmed and so on. That's probably the biggest mistake. I think the other ones, you know, could tie around just having the incorrect type of content based upon what, you know, how the campaign itself is being structured. So like, for example, when we talk about intent-based marketing, it's having the supporting content pieces. So if you are going to very like niche down on a particular practice area, it's creating supporting content based around that particular practice area. The other one, so when we talk about like video quality, I think the more important factor, it's less to do with like, you know, this is a professionally produced HD video. I mean, I think that can be nice and that can be helpful, but the more important factor ultimately is going to be tied to, you know, having a strong emotional connection in that video and being able to really drive action. So being able to stand out and really connect with somebody, to humanize the firm, to clearly articulate what sets the firm apart and why someone should hire you as opposed to your competitors. If you can do that in the video, I think quality is secondary. If you can combine the two and you've got high quality and powerful messaging, you're probably in the best shape. But I think that's probably another factor. And then finally, I would say that the other mistake is just, you know, doing this as like a one shot. So like, you know, I think, you know, the video these days should be like a continuous part of a content marketing strategy. It'd be no different than, you know, if you created one blog post and never blogged again. I think, you know, when you talk about content marketing, it needs to be continuous and, you know, and continue to keep your audience engaged, because, you know, when, let's say they're going off the page, if they continue to see just the one content piece and there's nothing that's going to continue to nurture them throughout that decision-making process. So they may not be able to, you know, or ready to make that decision today, but perhaps they're ready, you know, several weeks or months or what have you from that time. So being able to continuously nurture them, like we discussed, like having client testimonials or having educational videos, things like that can be really beneficial in driving them back to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that we tell all of our clients, you know, you have to think about your prospects in 3 ways: now buyers, future buyers, and never buyers, right? And you're speaking to these people in different tones, in different places, with different types of content. And all of that stuff should relate back to your practice's big idea, how you can benefit the customer, benefit the client. What can you actually give to them? It's not about, you know, what you're going to get from them in return. So sticking to that a little bit, are there any types of like hurdles or watchouts when people want to, when they come to you and say, hey, Michael, we'd like to produce a video for our firm? Is there anything that you're just like, don't do this, or anything that you're just like, you have to do it like this, that you could give to the audience?
Yeah, you know, I'd say that sometimes what we see happen is a firm will have seen another firm's video and they say, I want to do exactly like that. Like they'll say, like, I want the doves flying and the explosions and all that stuff, and that's how we would like for our firm to come off. But when you really kind of dig deep and kind of, you know, to start to understand the value proposition of the firm, you find that their value proposition may not be that. So what I would advocate is just making sure that the content you create is authentic to your firm and why clients hire you. And the best way to figure this out is, quite frankly, just to ask your clients, like, why did you hire us, and as opposed, you know, instead of our competitors? And while, you know, a law firm may believe it's because they provide such aggressive representation, they have so much experience, and they're just, you know, they have amazing settlement verdicts. When you ask the clients, sometimes the clients tell a different story, and they'll say something along the lines of, because they were so responsive, they came to visit me in the hospital. So making sure that, that ultimately the messaging is in line with why clients are actually hiring you. And we find that authenticity is much better than anything else. I mean, people want to connect with a human being. It's less important in terms of like what you look like or how polished you come off or anything like that. Nowadays, people want to be able to make an emotional connection. So it's making sure that that authenticity remains present throughout the content.
Sure. And I think that that's definitely something that most firms, I think they lose track of when they see other, yeah, maybe it's a past colleague, maybe it's a former classmate, and they see them run a specific type of campaign, whether it be one of those cheesy jingles that sometimes you see lawyers do, or to your point, the explosions and doves flying. They jump on that thinking that is the holy grail or the end all be all. But I think, once you really do hone in on what your intent is in terms of, what your customer's intent is, what you're trying to get out of the video, it will alleviate some of those stresses in trying to be something that you're not.
Agreed.
Cool. So what questions do you have? It looks like we have a couple of them right here queued up. Cameron asks, what about the length of video? How does that come into play? Is there anything that you should stick to, or is that just kind of an ad as it comes type of process?
So in terms of length of video, it depends upon, we find typically what platform it is going on. So generally we find that if it's content that is on social, sometimes a shorter video cut, so whether it's like 30 seconds or 15 seconds, if you're running it as like a pre-roll bumper ad on something like YouTube, that can be 6 seconds. So those function more so as teasers. It's kind of like where a prospective client is in their life cycle stage. So, are they going to watch a 2 to 3 minute video the very first time they see it on social media? Probably unlikely. But if you can hook them with like, a 30-second teaser, once they are engaged, like we find that generally once they're going to a landing page or a home page of some sorts, they can watch that full 2 to 3 minute branding video that would have that full story. But if you're running the content in, on other social platforms, generally the shorter videos will do much better. And even then, that being said, we find that like 2 to 3 minutes is the sweet spot for a longer branding video. So like meaning that if the video becomes too long, like it's 5 minutes or something like that, with the exception of a few practice areas. So unless you're providing like an educational webinar and you're in estate planning and you're conducting like, here's this overview of like, how to handle, this estate plan, and it's something that's very educational, at that point, you really do have a different level of engagement and buy-in. But even then, to get people to that page, perhaps a shorter video that's 30 seconds or 60 seconds to get that, that level of intent would be wise before hitting them with a much longer content piece.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And the way that we look at it is we'll create some type of pillar content. That's what we like to call it, longer formats of content that'll live on the different platforms for long term. So figure your website or your landing page, and then from that pillar content you can go and create those 30-second, 15-second, 6-second teasers that will then drive the customer prospect back to your landing page for more information. So we actually wholeheartedly believe in the same thing there. So Cameron, do you have any other questions for us today? And there was one that came in through email. In terms of style, look and feel, is there anything that users should gravitate towards or stay away from? I know we talked a little bit about, it being more of having a sense of realism, and people actually gravitate towards that a little bit more than, the exaggerated situations. But is there anything that you can give us some insight on in regards to, look and feel for some of these videos?
Yeah, so we're a bit biased. I mean, being crisp video. So what I would say is that we do believe that quality content that's well produced is the perception is reality, and it reflects quite well in the firm. If a firm talks about being world class and someone's first touch point with that firm is seeing some of their content, that it should align with what the messaging and the brand is of the firm. What I will say that we've seen that consistently works well and yields much higher conversion rates across all content pieces is featuring clients and client testimonials. So having that level of social proof in there, it's one thing for a firm to talk about how great they are and just how incredible and world class they are, but it's quite another to hear that from clients. So we find that generally what the firm is talking about, whether the attorneys in the firm, team members, is more about their why and their values and why they do what they do. And then the clients are actually supporting that by saying that these guys are really great and this is how incredible they are and I had this kind of outcome with them and this was my experience. That stuff can really add a lot of value to the content. So generally we've, through all the videos that we've done, we've found that the ones that have client testimonials, those are converting at a rate that's 5 times higher than the ones that do not. And I think it really is that social proof piece.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for that. So we just wanted to say thank you. I know we've got a little bit of time left, but I know that, Michael, you're a very busy guy, so we don't want to keep you longer than we have to. And since there are no more questions that are coming up, we'll go through and just kind of give everyone who's joined us a quick thank you. If you need to reach out to myself or Michael, our contact information is on the screen here. And for some further training material, we have a couple of offers here for you. You can get the first chapter of Michael's book, The Game Changing Attorney, by just clicking this link right here, and it should pop up on your screen any moment. And Michael, I know that you guys are now hosting a summit in September. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep, we've got a law firm growth conference this September. It's the 27th and 28th in Atlanta. It is, I would look at it as like a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within mixed with like a Dreamforce conference. Though it's pretty insane. But we'll have roughly 1,000 growth-minded attorneys there. We've got like Gary Vaynerchuk and a few other speakers headlining. So basically, all things marketing and business development.
That's awesome, Will. I thank you guys for allowing us to take some of your time today and for sharing your summit. Hopefully, you guys take advantage of this opportunity and sign up today. It's going to be great. The speakers that they have are out of this world, and I'm sure you'll get a lot out of it. Well, again, thank Michael for joining us today. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us. If you're looking for a consultation and how we can help add an additional 30 to 50 clients to your firm, please go ahead and give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll make sure that we set you up on our schedule. Mike, thank you again.
It's my pleasure, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Take care.